137,000 businesses were started today, all with the hopes and dreams of helping people and businesses solve real problems. But the sad reality is that most of those businesses will fail. Now, some people will argue that the reason they fail is because the idea is no good, the execution was poor. But to those people, I ask, have you ever heard of a company called the Pet Rock Company?
Hey, who'd have thought I'd bought a rock?
They're very feisty.
Their product, a rock, a simple, smooth rock. Their revenue, over $6 million in the 1970s. So how is it that a company that is selling a rock can be successful, yet the innovative companies of today are barely getting off the mark? And it can be pinned down to one specific thing. They don't know how to communicate their value effectively to the market. Just look at these two claims from two separate AI CRM software companies. Now, I have no doubt they will bring real value to businesses that they want to help, but just look at the way in which they're portraying their value to the market. Look familiar? And they're almost using the same exact language to describe their products. Now, how is a consumer meant to choose between those two and know which one will have real value? So when they've heard all of these benefits and claims at a surface level, nothing resonates anymore. And these new businesses with no reputation don't get chosen. The first thing to helping businesses solve this problem is understanding what real value is. Now, the model that I've found most useful in this case is from Bain & Company, and it's called the Pyramid of Value. Now, this framework is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in which the most basic elements sit at the bottom, and as you ascend the pyramid, you elevate to different levels. Now, Bain & Company took the 30 elements of value that they extracted from the market based on consumers' needs and organized them into 4 separate tiers. The first tier being organized as functional value, the next tier being organized as emotional value, the third tier as being life-changing value, and the fourth tier being social impact or self-transcendence, being more than focused on oneself. What we're seeing in the market is most businesses are staying at this functional level. Now, at this functional level, these are the benefits that a product or service provides that are practical and useful. For example, their product or service saves money, saves a user time, or their product or service reduces risk to the end user. A lot of these companies only ever speak in terms of functional value. Now, the problem with that is all of your competitors will have this exact same functional value. Most companies focus too much on only speaking about these types of values, and they forget about the other levels of value that they can bring to consumers, which would differentiate them from their competitors. Now, these are the benefits that make people feel something. This could mean that the value of the product makes them feel less anxious, or the product brings back a sense of nostalgia to their childhood. Or the most recognizable level of this is luxury goods, which is called badge value, where it's a signal. It's making someone feel they have an elevated status in comparison to their peers. And this is where brand loyalty begins to come into play, because people have an emotional connection to businesses, which makes new business harder to establish if you're only making functional level claims. But one step further than emotional value is life-changing value. This is where product or services present their value as something that will be life-changing to the end user. Now, this is a level deeper than emotion. For example, a life-changing value that using your product or services could be is that it's providing hope for something bigger and better about the future.
We had no idea how Tesla would change our lives. I wear a lot of hats. I am a producer for commercials. I am a mom.
In the beginning, we just had one car, and we would fight over who got to drive it.
Tesla strategically chose to position their products as life-changing, meaning that owning a Tesla was much more than simply owning a car. It was a signal of hope that buying a Tesla meant that there's a cleaner, greener world at the end. Or your value of using your product or service can be seen as an heirloom, passing down from generation to generation.
We stand at the summit of Mont Blanc. The temperature has dropped 10 degrees in the last 15 minutes.
Celsius or centigrade?
What? They're the same. The Mont Blanc Observatory High Mountain Library and Writing Room, headquarters of Inspire Writing, which is our other campaign slogan.
Mont Blanc can position their value as an heirloom because of the timeless quality and the use of premium materials and the history behind the 100-year company. These are all ways in which they can communicate their value to the market to differentiate themselves from every other pen company. As you can see, as you communicate value in these higher and higher channels, the impact you will likely have and the loyalty you will build for your brand will be much, much stronger than staying at that surface functional level. And the highest form of value is social impact. They feel using the product or service is for a purpose greater than themselves, which is the ultimate level of value. We're seeing this more and more with social-led brands where they curate and make a community of people, or when they purchase something or use the service, they feel they are benefiting other people in some way rather than just themselves. Just look at these two examples from Tom's Shoes and Patagonia.
Everything we make has an impact on the planet. The clothing industry dumps waste into landfills, rivers, and oceans, exploits workers, and contributes up to 10% of the pollution driving the climate crisis. All to sell you this t-shirt. But it doesn't have to be this way. What you buy is what the industry becomes. You have the power to change the way clothes are made. Buy less, demand more.
This level of self-transcendence is the highest level of value a brand can command. And to that we need to look to behavioural psychology and to the concept of framing. Framing is the concept that the way information is presented can strongly influence someone's perception and therefore their decision making. Framing is a skill that is used to direct and draw attention to certain pieces of information, and in this case, to the value of a product or service, to invoke an emotional response and influence decision making. The most famous example of framing that you've probably come across but didn't realise it, where we pour water into a cup halfway, and there's two ways in which you can describe what you're seeing. One can be described as half empty and one can be described as half full. Most people use this as a metaphor of changing your perspective. One is a negative perspective, one is a positive perspective. But this is just framing in action. It's exactly the same information, but rewritten to elicit a different response. Now this is a particularly useful skill because if you're stuck in the functional level of communicating your value to your customers, you can use framing to reframe those functional benefits to differentiate us from the competition. Now let's apply framing to a practical example to show you the power of framing and how it can be used to elevate your communication of value to your customers. Imagine you're an energy company, a highly competitive industry in which most of the benefits are exactly the same depending on which provider you go with. Now let's take the claim that energy company X save you money on your energy bills. Now what this is communicating functional value. Let's use the skill of framing to elevate that claim and frame it within the different levels of the value pyramid. So let's look at a way in which you can turn that statement into a more emotional frame. Instead of saying saving you money on your energy bill, we can reframe that to elicit an emotion. Now that same statement can be said like this: it's like finding cash in your pocket, except it happens every month. Now this statement is basically saying the same thing. We're saving you money because you're finding cash in your pocket, but it connects it to a relatable human experience, which ties them feeling about saving money to an emotion and an experience, which is a much stronger pull rather than just a functional claim. Now we can reframe it again to try and elicit a way in which this benefit could be life-changing. So let's look at how we can frame it in this instance. So that statement would become funding your future one low energy bill at a time. Now again, it's still around the same concept of saving them money, but it's tying them to a greater purpose, giving them hope, giving them an idea that there's more that they can do with their money if they save money with energy company X. It could be framed as life-changing depending on the other surrounding communication that goes around this statement. But it just shows you how you can reframe saves you money into something that's going towards a greater cause that will elicit a stronger emotional response from the customer. Now finally, let's frame this benefit in the wider social impact category, which will be the strongest sense of value if customers feel and engage with this messaging. So that statement becomes, your choice helps build a world where energy costs less for everyone. Now again, this is framing the use of their product or service that saves them money on their energy bill to a wider purpose. It's helping everyone save on their energy bill through the implied effect that if you work with our business and we can have more customers, then we can help more people. Now, connecting saving you money to helping lots and lots of people is a much stronger pull towards a company than that simple functional level claim. Now that was just a small example of how powerful framing can be, and there's multiple different ways you can frame things, and framing isn't just rewriting words, it's the way in which information is also displayed. I hope that was interesting and has sparked you to want to learn a little bit more about behavioural psychology and behavioural economics. So if you want to learn a little bit more about behavioural psychology and the way it can impact and elevate your business to stand out in the market, then we have multiple courses on our website, which will be linked down below. Of course, we will be doing many other videos on how to apply behavioural economics and behavioural psychology to different scenarios, both in business and personal life. So if you want to stick around, hit that subscribe button, and any videos you want to see us apply behavioural economics principles to any market, sector, business, situation, scenario, drop it in the comments and we'll take a look. Until the next one.